Days after powerful storms tore through East Texas, tens of thousands remain without power, and a dozen East Texas counties are in a state of disaster. But what do those disaster declarations mean? And what must happen to get federal assistance? We went on the search for answers. These are the 12 East Texas counties included in Governor Greg Abbott's latest disaster proclamation. Action authorizing the use of all available state resources, like the Texas National Guard, which is delivering ready-to-eat meals and water. And while the governor's proclamation focuses on immediate needs, the state is already working to determine if this disaster meets the high threshold for federal assistance.
All of our damage assessments that we do at the state level in partnership with our local officials, we will then call in our federal partners, and we will make a recommendation to the governor as to whether or not we've met those federal requirements.
Seth Christensen is with the Texas Division of Emergency Management, an entity with crews on the ground surveying storm damage.
If we do determine that we are getting close to that threshold for federal disaster assistance, we'll ask for our federal partners to come in on the ground and walk those homes and look at those impacted properties with us, and then that will help us determine whether or not we make a federal request for assistance.
And in order to better understand the scope of the damage, TDEM is asking East Texans with damage to report it using the iStat tool on their website.
We need to be able to show 800 homes with major damage or destroyed that are or underinsured in order to get federal FEMA assistance, or we might qualify for additional assistance from, say, the Small Business Administration, and for that we need to be able to show 25 homes that have major damage or are destroyed in a jurisdiction.
And to report storm damage, scan the QR code on your screen or click the big red box at kltv.com. Once there, you'll find a link to the Division of Emergency Management's iStat website. Now, along with this, if you have insurance, TDEM also wants you to make sure you file a claim with your insurance provider.